So this video is a short but highly requested one, the aim of which is to help crafters new to my modular magnetic systems decide what to build first and find the tutorials they're looking for. But it's also a big gallery full of pretty pictures of my work, so please stick around and chill with me, even if you're not new. Welcome to the archive, my name's Matt, and I'm about to go on holiday to recharge my crafting batteries, hence the short video. One of the more common questions I get asked is what to build first, and while this depends a lot on what you want to get out of it, I think I can recommend a few basic pieces that are universally very useful. I'll also be mentioning where the most up-to-date versions of those tutorials are, so stick around if that's what you're looking for. The first thing I would make is good old dungeon tiles, because they're an easy to make building block that grounds you in the basics and lets you map out a lot of things in at least a basic way. Even if you only have stone tiles, you can map out dungeon rooms, buildings, castle walls, roads, and with a bit of creativity, even more. Making these is really simple too. Just cut a 3-inch square of 1/2-inch thick XPS foam. Guides on where to get this stuff, as well as the tools, are available in the equipment list in the description. Then to texture it, all you need to do is cut a 1-inch grid into it with a knife or hot wire, widen those gaps a bit with a ballpoint pen, and texture it by pressing on a ball of scrunched up tinfoil. It's worth cutting or squashing the edges in a bit too, so there's a nice gap between each tile to match the gaps in the middle of, well, the tiles. To add detail, you can also cut little cracks in the stone. Just 1 or 2 will do, and it adds some easy flavour. I've shown lots of different connection methods, but the best one that I've found for me has been using magnets, where I measure a 1/2 inch from the edge of each corner in the middle and melt a hole for a magnet with a hot glue gun, putting north polarity on the right and south on the left. These poles are pretty much whichever side of the magnet you decide they are on your first piece, and just call them north and south from there. You can double seal the magnets in as well to make sure they stay, with a thin layer of hot glue over them. To measure the holes faster, you can also make a jig, which is a tip that I show in the Fast and Cheap Tricks video linked and timestamped below. But I've also now had a patron make a free 3D printable set of jigs that you can print and use for this, which is kind of awesome. Hi, future editing Matt here. My patron Sam made these jigs for UK 10mm foam, so I went ahead and ran up this 1/2-inch alternative with some slight changes. It has 2 open sides to allow you to place floor connection magnets at the bottom of walls too, and to make it clear which corner you want the tile pushed into. You can also use it to easily stamp in the magnet locations onto the sides of walls. I also extended the resting flat bit a little bit further to make it a bit faster to slap tiles to and keep them straight. Thanks for the inspiration, Sam. Oh, and I made another one for the top and bottom placement of magnets on wall tiles, while I was at it. These are all free STLs to 3D print, which are linked in the description. If you don't want to use magnets, you can use a card tab connection system, which I was originally inspired by Wirelock to create for these tiles. The most up-to-date tutorial for this, I think, is in the Caverns video, which is linked and timestamped below. Hopefully this is a good starting place for new crafters. If you want a more advanced version that works with magnetic interior walls that you can place pretty much anywhere, there's a bonus video coming soon on my Patreon, showing that as well as what I think is a more advanced and to scale tile texture. Purely optional, but I massively appreciate any support the channel gets to keep running. One of the first places you're likely to go in D&D is a cave of some description, and making a few basic cavern tiles is the perfect way to show that layout quickly while you work on other pieces to add to them later to make them more complex and badass. These tiles are shown in the Caverns video, but I'd recommend 2 tiny updates. Firstly, I'd make all sides of the tile magnetic and not bother with the card tabs, unless that's your main chosen connection system. And secondly, I would leave the edges perfectly flat and not cut them at an angle like this. This not only makes the tiles connect smoother, you can still get that ragged edge look for high areas by making little foam attachments like this, which I showed later in the Volcanic Tiles video, which is linked and timestamped below. Just very quickly, thank you so much to my patrons who made this video and all of the others possible. Now, this one is a little more advanced, and you can skip it for a while if you don't feel like you have the confidence yet, but really basic ones are no harder than the cavern tiles. Grasslands or woodlands pop up pretty regularly in early D&D, so getting a few of these under your belt is a nice easy win. The only update I'd do here would be, again, to go full magnetic on the sides and keep them straight, exactly like in the caverns. Only one tiny piece of bonus advice. Grass and spray your tiles separately, not connected. It helps the grass blend together far more. I honestly would start with just some 6-inch and 3-inch square tiles. These are the size that I've found most useful and flexible, and in the long run you can add some corners and so on to use with mountain blocks and other shiny add-ons. But to get started, just make 12 6-inch tiles and 12 3-inch tiles, and add whatever little details you feel comfortable with. Play with plaster rock molds, modelling compound, or just keep it really simple and add some rocky patches. All of these techniques are in that video, and all of the materials are linked in the equipment list. I'll also answer any questions that you have if I can, unless I'm still on holiday. Back to dungeons and building. These were my very first project on the channel and are incredibly flexible. You can make temples, arenas, stairways, walls, castles, and far more with just one simple piece. These were massively inspired by Blackmagicraft's Dungeon Stackers, and in turn by the guy who gave Blackmagicraft the idea. I just expanded on it a little bit. This is a great piece to introduce new people to crafting with. There's very little precise work once the blocks are cut, and you can sit together and work through a collective project. One tip that I didn't realise in the original video: make sure that you texture even the areas that will be glued and hidden. The slight height difference from the squishing gets exaggerated with more blocks added together, and it can make it just a little bit wibbly. Wibble. I do plan on doing a Patreon bonus video updated version of these at some point, with magnetised accessories and possibly even magnetised blocks. But you don't need that getting started. Just sit down with some friends or family, cut some foam and make a thing. Now, this one kind of depends on you. I couldn't choose, so I just added both. Walls give a ton of depth to dungeons, let you build real modular buildings, add line of sight as more of an issue, and let you play with a ton of accessories to add easy details. Mountain blocks, meanwhile, add verticality and epicness to your caves, let you make real mountains, add so many more options to grasslands, and basically turn your 2.5D terrain fully 3D. The wall tutorial linked in timestamp below actually stands up pretty well. All you need to do is ignore the card tab bits and add magnets on the inside. I show how to do this in the cottage video, but I show it specifically for those tiles, which I can see being a little bit confusing for anyone new to it. So here's the easy version. Pick your inside facing. I chose the one with the north side magnet on the left, and add magnets just like the floor tiles, north on the right and south on the left, 1/2 inch from the sides and 1/4 inch from the bottom. This will line them up exactly with floor tiles. Magnets also hide the connection better. You can leave the magnets showing or use putty like I show in the stair blocks video, which is linked in timestamp below, to hide them entirely. As for mountain blocks, that tutorial again holds up pretty well, but there's two things that it's worth knowing. One, a lot of people struggle to find the kind of thick foam that I used, but I've recently realised you can get around this by layering whatever foam that you have and using foam putty to fill the gaps. I still haven't tested this fully because frankly I haven't quite had the time. You might be able to get away with adding the putty before the texturing, but it is violent. So it might be best to use putty to fill the gaps after the texture is done. The other thing it's worth knowing is I am working on an upgraded variant of the mountain blocks as a Patreon bonus video. This one is designed to be magnetised, flexible, and with smaller gaps between the blocks, but it's still kind of in the planning stages. Worth knowing if those features are something that you really want though. I hope you guys found this useful. I'll be back soon with a full build, but until next time, please subscribe, like, comment and share, and I'll be in the archive.